The jewelry box sat open on my dresser, its burgundy velvet interior faded to the color of old wine. I'd opened it that morning looking for my mother's cameo, the one with the carved ivory profile, the woman's face turned left like she was watching for something just out of frame, the space where it should have been held only a dust outline, cleaner than the surrounding fabric, as if the piece had been lifted carefully, deliberately. Morning light filtered through the lace curtains, turning the empty box into something accusatory. The silence in my bedroom felt louder than it had any right to be. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at nothing, trying to remember the last time I'd actually opened this box. 2 months? 3? My mother had worn that cameo every Sunday to church, pinned just below her collar. When she died, it came to me with her other things. The wedding band, the pearl earrings my father gave her for their 20th anniversary, a thin gold bracelet I'd never seen her without. I'd planned to give the cameo to Maya someday, when she was ready to understand what it meant to carry something forward. The house felt too quiet around me. Robert had been gone 3 years now, the divorce finalized on a Tuesday that felt like any other Tuesday until suddenly it wasn't, and I still wasn't used to the silence. Some mornings I'd wake up and forget, reach across the bed for warmth that wasn't there anymore. This morning, though, the emptiness felt different. Pointed. The jewelry box gaped at me like an open mouth, and I had the strange sensation of being swallowed by my own bedroom, by the familiar floral wallpaper and the oak furniture that had witnessed 30 years of my life. I picked up the box and carried it to the window, tilting it in the light as if the cameo might somehow reappear. Dust motes floated in the sunbeam. The velvet lining showed the rectangular impression where my grandmother's wedding band usually sat, the circular depression that held my mother's pearl earrings, the elongated space, now conspicuously empty, where the cameo had rested for the past 6 years. I ran my finger along that empty space. The velvet felt different there, smoother, less worn. 3 months ago, Maya had stopped by for coffee. Just coffee, she'd said. She was in the neighborhood. She'd seemed jittery, kept checking her phone, and at some point she'd wandered into my bedroom while I was refilling our mugs. When I came back, she was standing at my dresser, the jewelry box open in her hands. "I forgot how pretty this was," she'd said, holding up the cameo to catch the light. Something in my stomach had tightened, but I'd dismissed it. She was my daughter. I'd smiled and told her the story again, her grandmother at church, the way the brooch caught the sun through stained glass windows. Maya had nodded, set it back carefully, changed the subject. But had she set it back? I tried to replay the memory now, watching Maya's hands in my mind's eye. Had I actually seen her return it to the box? Or had I just assumed? The memory felt slippery, unreliable. I remembered her turning away from the dresser. I remembered us walking back to the kitchen together. I didn't remember watching her close the jewelry box. I closed it now and reached for my phone. Maya's number rang 4 times, then clicked to voicemail. Her voice, bright and professional. "You've reached Maya Chen, leave a message and I'll get back to you." I hung up without speaking. At my kitchen table, I pulled up my bank statements on my laptop, checking for unauthorized charges. Anything unusual. Everything looked normal. My checking account showed the same small deposits from my part-time library job, the same withdrawals for groceries and utilities. The water bill, due next week. The electric company. My car insurance. Everything accounted for, everything in its place except the one thing that mattered. I glanced at the key hooks by the back door. One held my car key, the other was empty. The spare key I'd given Maya for emergencies. I tried to remember the last time I'd seen it hanging there. Surely I would have noticed if it had been missing for weeks. But then again, I didn't check that hook every day. Sometimes whole weeks went by where I came and went through the front door, never even glancing at the back entrance. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. I dumped it in the sink and stared out the window at Mrs. Chen's roses, their red blooms almost violent against the white picket fence between our yards. Everything outside looked aggressively normal. Mailman making his rounds, kids riding bikes in the cul-de-sac, the Johnson's dog barking at a squirrel. Meanwhile, inside my house, something had been stolen, and I didn't even know when. Mrs. Chen caught me in the driveway that afternoon. She was watering her roses, the spray from her hose catching rainbows in the sun. "Saw Maya's car here Tuesday," she said, not looking up from her flowers. "Around 2? Thought you were at book club?" I was. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Everything okay?" "Fine. She probably just stopped by." I forced a smile and headed back inside before she could ask anything else. Tuesday. 2 days ago. Book club met every other Tuesday at the library, in the back room that smelled like old paper and John Harmon's too strong perfume. We discussed a novel about sisters and secrets, which felt uncomfortably prescient now. I'd been gone from 1:30 until almost 5, plenty of time for Maya to let herself in, go through my things, take what she wanted. The thought made my skin feel too tight. I spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning, the frantic, purposeless kind of cleaning that's really just moving anxiety around the house. I scrubbed the kitchen counters until my knuckles ached, vacuumed the living room carpet in aggressive diagonal lines, reorganized the spice cabinet alphabetically, then by frequency of use, then alphabetically again. None of it helped. The empty jewelry box sat on my dresser like an accusation I couldn't answer. I tried Maya's number again that evening. This time she answered, breathless. "Mom, hey, I'm actually in a meeting. Can I call you back?" "Maya, I need to ask you something." Silence, then, "Okay." "My jewelry box, the cameo." The pause stretched longer than breathing required. Background noise on her end. Voices, a door closing. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, gone careful. "I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" "I pawned it." "It was an emergency, Mom. I'll get it back. I just needed—" The words hit me like cold water. Pawned. Past tense. Already done. Already gone. What kind of emergency? Her voice hardened, a wall going up between us. "I'm 32 years old. I don't owe you an itemized list." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat at the kitchen table with my mother's photograph in front of me, the one from 1987 where she's standing in front of our old house on Marigold Street. In the photo, she's wearing the cameo, her hand touching it absently the way she always did, like she was making sure it was still there. Her expression is serene, patient, the look she wore when she was about to tell me something important but was waiting for me to be ready to hear it. I traced the outline of the cameo in the photograph with my finger. The glass was cool and smooth, nothing like the warmth of actual ivory against skin. The quiet rage that had been building in my chest since morning settled into something colder, more deliberate. I picked up my phone again and opened Instagram, something I rarely did. The app felt foreign in my hands, all its bright squares and casual abbreviations. I had to search for Maya's profile, couldn't remember if I was even following her or if I just looked her up once and never bothered to click the button. Maya's most recent post was from yesterday. A photo of her and 3 friends at Vesper, the new cocktail bar downtown that charged $18 for a martini. I knew this because Diane had taken me there for my birthday, insisted we try it, and I'd nearly choked on the price list. In the photo, Maya and her friends were laughing, heads thrown back, the lighting golden and flattering. The caption read, "Finally a night out." 43 likes, comments from people saying gorgeous and you deserve it, and where's that top from? I scrolled further, falling backward through Maya's recent life in carefully curated squares. 4 days ago, a close-up of a handbag, buttery leather with gold hardware, the designer's logo subtle but unmistakable, the kind of bag that costs more than my monthly mortgage payment. Caption, "Early birthday present to myself." 3 days before that, a flat-lay photograph of coffee, a croissant, and a book I recognized from the bestseller display at work. Caption, "Sunday mood." A week before that, a selfie in a white robe, cucumber slices, arranged artfully on a towel beside her, her skin glowing and dewy, tagged at Serenity Day Spa, the place on Elmwood that advertised luxury wellness experiences starting at $200. Caption, "Self-care isn't selfish." 2 weeks back, a screenshot of a restaurant reservation at Brighton's Steakhouse with the caption, "Treating ourselves." I'd looked at Brighton's menu once, years ago, when Robert suggested it for our anniversary. The entrees started at $45. Emergency. The word sat bitter on my tongue. I kept scrolling, going back further, watching Maya's life unspool in reverse. New running shoes, a weekend trip to a bed and breakfast upstate, cocktails at another expensive bar, a concert, good seats, judging by the angle, new throw pillows, a scented candle that apparently cost $38, price tag visible in the photo, probably accidentally. Brunch. More brunch. A dress. Another dress. Dinner out. Wine tasting. Farmer's market hall arranged in aesthetic abundance. Each image was a small luxury, a little indulgence, carefully lit and captioned, each one gathering its crop of likes and validating comments. None of them worth the weight of what she'd taken. My phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Heard from Maya today? She missed our lunch. I stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone face down on the table. I didn't have words yet for what I was feeling. Betrayal was too simple. Grief was too clean. This was something messier, something that tasted like disappointment and fury in equal measure, something that made me want to throw the photograph across the room and also hold it closer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed watching shadows from the streetlight move across the ceiling, thinking about the night I'd taught Maya about heirlooms. She must have been 12, still small enough that her hands looked delicate holding the cameo. We'd been packing up my mother's things after the funeral, sorting through decades of accumulated life, the keep pile, the donate pile, the too painful to decide pile. Maya had found the jewelry box in a dresser drawer and brought it to me eyes wide. "Can I see?" I'd opened it for her, explained each piece. "This was your great-grandmother's wedding band. See how thin it is? That's because they didn't have much money, but your great-grandfather saved for months to buy it. And these pearls? Your grandfather gave these to your grandmother on their 20th anniversary. He'd put away $5 a week for 4 years." Maya had picked up the cameo, held it up to my bedside lamp. The light turned the ivory translucent, showed the delicate carving work, the way the profile seemed almost alive in the right illumination. "It's beautiful. It was your grandmother's most precious thing. She wore it every Sunday, said it made her feel close to her mother who'd worn it before her. Will it be mine someday?" "Someday," I'd said. "When you're ready to understand that. Some things carry more than money. Some things carry people forward." She'd nodded solemnly, traced the carved profile with one finger. "I'll remember." I rolled over in bed now, pulled the blanket up to my chin. She'd remembered all right. Remembered enough to know where I kept it. Remembered enough to wait until I wasn't home. Remembered enough to take it. The next morning I called in sick to the library, something I rarely did, but Carol, who answered the phone, didn't question it, just said she hoped I felt better soon. I drove to the pawn shop on Bleecker Street, the address I'd found with a quick Google search for pawn shops near me. The building squatted between a laundromat and a check-cashing place, its windows covered with iron bars and faded posters advertising cash for gold and we buy jewelry and quick cash, no questions. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed overhead, turning everything the color of old teeth. Glass cases lined the walls filled with watches and rings and necklaces, each with a small paper tag showing a price and a date. The air smelled like dust and desperation. A man behind bulletproof glass barely looked up from his phone, his face illuminated by its blue glow. "Help you?" "I'm looking for a cameo brooch. Vintage ivory carving, gold setting. It would have been brought in maybe 3-4 weeks ago." He sighed, set down his phone with obvious reluctance, and tapped at a computer with 2 fingers. "Description?" I described it in detail. The woman's profile facing left, the delicate scroll work on the gold frame, the small dent on the clasp where my father had dropped it in 1989 and spent an entire weekend fixing it with jeweler's tools he'd borrowed from a friend. The man scrolled, squinted at the screen, scrolled some more. "Sold. 2 weeks ago. Cash transaction." The words hit me in the stomach. "Who bought it?" "Can't tell you that." "It was stolen." He looked at me properly for the first time, taking in my face, my respectable cardigan, my sensible shoes, probably calculating whether I was actually going to be trouble. "You got a police report?" I didn't answer. What would I say? My daughter took it? My own daughter, who I gave a key to, who I trusted with access to my home and my life? He shrugged and went back to his phone, conversation over. I stood there for another moment looking at the cases full of other people's precious things, all of them reduced to price tags and inventory numbers. Then I turned and walked out. In my car, I sat with the engine off and scrolled through more of Maya's feed. The images blurred together, new throw pillows on her couch, a set of wine glasses catching afternoon light, a photo of her kitchen with fresh flowers in a vase, and the caption, "Slowly making this house a home." Each photo had dozens of likes, comments from friends saying love this and looks amazing, and linked to those glasses. I zoomed in on one photo, studying the background. New curtains in her living room, the fabric looking expensive, the kind with a subtle sheen. Another photo showed a corner of what must be her dining room, a credenza I didn't remember, topped with a decorative bowl that probably cost more than it had any right to. Her whole feed was a catalog of acquisition, of filling space with things, of treating herself to whatever caught her eye. My phone rang. "Diane?" I answered. So Maya said you two had a fight? Not a fight, a conversation. About? I told her, the words coming out flat and factual. The missing cameo, the pawn shop, the casual cruelty of I don't owe you an itemized list. Diane listened quietly, the way she always did when I needed her to just absorb information without trying to fix it yet. When I finished, she sighed. She's always been a little entitled. Ever since the divorce, you've let her get away with, I didn't call for an autopsy. I'm just saying, maybe it's time to set some boundaries. She walks all over you, Ellen. She always has. That's not fair, isn't it? Remember when she was 16 and you worked overtime for 3 months to buy her that car, and she complained because it wasn't the right color? Or when you paid for half her wedding and she didn't even put your name in the thank you speech? I closed my eyes. I don't want to do this right now. I know, I'm sorry. But at some point you have to stop making excuses for her. She's not a kid anymore. She's a grown woman who stole from her own mother. Boundaries. The word landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples outward. Too late for boundaries. The damage was already done. We said goodbye, and I sat with my phone in my lap, staring at the pawn shop's barred windows. A woman came out carrying a small paper bag, her shoulders hunched against some invisible weight. I wondered what she'd sold, what emergency had driven her there, whether anyone she loved had made it necessary. That afternoon, I did something I'd been avoiding. I drove past Maya's house, not stopping, just driving past slowly, like a stranger might. The colonial sat pristine in its development, lawn professionally maintained, the whole neighborhood looking like a photograph from a real estate brochure. Maya's car was in the driveway, and Todd's truck was gone. I drove around the block, came past again. The house looked smug somehow, satisfied with itself. The third time around, I parked 2 houses down and just sat there. I didn't know what I was doing. Looking for evidence? Waiting for revelation? The sun was starting to set, turning the sky orange and pink, and I watched lights come on in windows up and down the street. Normal people doing normal things. Making dinner, watching TV, living lives that presumably didn't involve stealing from their parents. My phone buzzed, Maya calling. I let it go to voicemail, watched the screen light up and then fade. A minute later, another buzz. Voicemail notification. I deleted it without listening. I drove home as darkness fell completely, the streetlights clicking on one by one. In my driveway, I sat in the car for a long time before going inside. The house would be dark and empty, the way it always was now. The jewelry box would still be sitting on my dresser, still accusing me of being the kind of mother whose daughter steals from her. The photograph of my mother would still be on the kitchen table where I'd left it, her hand touching the cameo in eternal, useless warning. The next day, I drove to Maya's house unannounced. She and Todd had bought it last year, a 2-story colonial in a subdivision called Maple Heights. All the houses painted different shades of the same beige. I parked in the driveway, retrieved the spare key from my purse, the one Maya had given me for emergencies, and let myself in. The house was empty, both cars gone. Midday silence, thick and waiting. The living room stopped me in the doorway. A massive sectional sofa, still wrapped in protective plastic, dominated the space, price tag visible on the armrest, $3,200. Not a sale price, not a clearance find. $3,200 for a couch that no one was even sitting on yet. The plastic crinkled faintly in the air conditioning, and I stood there imagining Maya and Todd discussing this purchase. Had they hesitated? Had either of them suggested maybe waiting, saving up? Or had Maya just pointed and said that one, the way she'd done as a child in toy stores, confident that wanting something was reason enough to have it? The kitchen had been renovated since I'd last visited, marble countertops in that trendy white with gray veining, white subway tile backsplash, all the appliances matching in brushed stainless steel. A wine fridge built into the island hummed quietly, stocked with bottles I recognized from the fancy wine shop on Main Street, the one with the sommelier and the tasting events. Each bottle probably $15, $20. The kitchen smelled new, like paint and caulk and ambition. Mail sat in a pile on the counter. I shouldn't have looked. I looked anyway. Credit card statement, Maya's name only. Minimum payment due, $340. Current balance, $847. Available credit, $6,043. I stared at those numbers until they stopped meaning anything, just became shapes on paper. $8,947. My mother's cameo had probably gotten Maya, what, $300? maybe 4 if she was lucky and the pawnshop guy was generous. A fraction of her debt. An emergency that wouldn't even make a dent in what she owed. I walked through the rest of the house slowly, cataloging. New area rug in the dining room, tags still attached. $681. Fresh paint smell in the upstairs hallway, the color a trendy blue-gray that design in magazines called calming and sophisticated. Master bathroom with his and hers sinks, fancy dispensers for soap mounted on the wall, the kind that cost $40 each and made you feel virtuous about reducing plastic waste. On Maya's nightstand, a stack of home decor magazines, corners dog-eared, rooms circled in pen, entire pages marked with sticky notes, a catalog from Pottery Barn, dog-eared on a page showing a $4,000 dining table. In the guest bedroom, mostly empty, I found boxes. Still packed from the move nearly a year later. I opened one. Old textbooks from college. Another, Maya's high school yearbooks, photo albums, her graduation tassel. Things that mattered once, now gathering dust in a room she probably never entered. In the same house where she'd spent thousands on a sofa she hadn't bothered to unwrap. Back downstairs, I stopped in front of a framed photograph hanging in the hallway. Maya's college graduation. She wore her cap and gown, arm around my shoulders, both of us grinning at the camera. I'd worked double shifts at the hospital for a year to help with tuition, beyond what loans and scholarships could cover. Came home at midnight smelling like antiseptic and other people's pain, too tired to eat, just tired enough to fall into bed and do it again the next day. In the photo, Maya's eyes were bright with future, and I looked proud. I had been proud. She'd done it, graduated with honors, landed a good job, married a good man. Done everything right, I'd thought. Turned out the way she was supposed to. I picked up the credit card statement again, studied the numbers. Account in Maya's name only, available credit $6,053. I pulled out my phone and took a photograph of the statement, making sure the card number and security code were visible and legible. My hands shook slightly, but my mind felt oddly clear. I stood in Maya's kitchen, surrounded by her expensive choices, holding evidence of all the room she had left to spend. Something shifted inside me. Not revenge exactly, something quieter. More like reclamation. Like the moment in a chess game when you suddenly see the whole board clearly, see exactly what moves are available and what they'll cost and what they'll win. Sure, I said aloud to the empty kitchen. What could go wrong? I left the house, sat in my car in the driveway, and stared at the photo on my phone screen for 5 full minutes. The numbers swam in and out of focus. I thought about my mother's cameo in a stranger's jewelry box somewhere, thought about Maya laughing with her friends over $18 cocktails, thought about the word emergency and how it apparently meant whatever we needed it to mean. Then I opened my phone's browser and typed, interior designers near me. The first result was Nouveau Design, a boutique firm whose website featured words like transformation and bespoke and elevated living. The photographs showed rooms that belonged in magazines, perfectly styled, expertly lit, the kind of spaces where every object had been chosen with intention and care, the kind of spaces that cost money, real money. The tagline read, "Your home should tell your story." I clicked the contact button. That evening I called Nouveau Design. A woman answered on the second ring, voice smooth as the marble in Maya's kitchen. Nouveau Design, this is Simone. I'd like to schedule a consultation, I said. Full-service redesign. Living room, dining room, kitchen updates. Wonderful. We'd love to work with you. And the address for the consultation? I gave her Maya's address, then my own phone number. She didn't question the mismatch. Why would she? People had second homes, investment properties, helped their children furnish their places. We have availability tomorrow at 10. Our lead designer Carlos can meet you there. He's wonderful. He'll really listen to your vision. Perfect. And just to set expectations, our full-service redesigns typically start around $15,000 and go up from there, depending on scope. Is that in line with your budget? I looked at the photo of Maya's credit card statement still open on my phone. Available credit, $6,053. Let's start with what we can do for around $12,000 and see where we are. That works beautifully. Carlos will bring a portfolio and some initial ideas. We're so excited to work with you. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, watching it go cold while I thought about what I was about to do. This wasn't me. I'd never been vindictive, never been petty. I was the woman who worked double shifts to pay for her daughter's education. The woman who babysat Maya's friends' children for free because their mother needed help. The woman who volunteered at the library and brought cookies to neighborhood meetings and always gave people the benefit of the doubt. But I was also my mother's daughter, and my mother had taught me that some things carry more than money. Some things carry people forward, and maybe it was time Maya learned what it felt like when someone took your choices away. I slept better than I had in weeks. Carlos arrived at Maya's house at 10 sharp the next morning, driving a sleek silver car and carrying a leather portfolio that looked more expensive than my winter coat. He was maybe 40, wearing clothes that looked expensive in that way that doesn't announce itself. Perfectly fitted, subtle colors, quality fabric. He shook my hand firmly and followed me inside. "Beautiful bones," he said immediately, standing in the entryway and looking around with an assessing eye. "Great natural light, good flow. But the furniture," he gestured at the plastic-wrapped sectional. "We can do so much better. Much better." Over the next hour, Carlos walked through every room, taking photos with a professional camera, making notes with a stylus on his tablet, asking questions about my vision. I told him I wanted elegant but comfortable, sophisticated but livable, quality pieces that would last. I told him nothing about why I was there or whose house it really was. He showed me images on his tablet as we went. Mid-century modern pieces, clean lines, quality, craftsmanship. This teak sofa, Danish design, cognac leather cushions, it would be perfect in this space. And here, he swiped to another image. Original art for the walls. I work with several local artists, not prints, actual paintings. This one, he showed me an abstract landscape in blues and greens. It would complement the natural light beautifully. We moved to the dining room. "Custom built-in shelving here," he said, gesturing to a blank wall. "Walnut, probably. And a statement chandelier, something with presence. I'm thinking geometric, modern brass. And the walls? Silk wallpaper with a subtle damask pattern. Elevated, but not stuffy. I like that. And lighting throughout, we'll need to update the fixtures. Brushed brass sconces in the living room. Pendant lights in the kitchen. Table lamps for the bedroom. I have a source for vintage pieces that I refurbish." By the time we finished the walkthrough, Carlos had filled several pages in his tablet with notes and measurements and ideas. We sat at Maya's dining table and he showed me a rough proposal. "Based on what we've discussed, I can give you a really beautiful transformation for around $12,000. That includes removing the existing sectional, we can donate it or you can sell it, up to you, replacing it with the teak sofa, commissioning 2 original paintings, installing custom built-in shelving, updating light fixtures throughout, adding the statement chandelier, silk wallpaper in the dining room, new area rugs, window treatments, and styling with accessories. Throw pillows, ceramics, books, plants. Everything curated, everything intentional." "What's the timeline?" "We can start tomorrow. Most of the work can be done in a week, maybe 10 days. The custom shelving takes the longest, 3 weeks for fabrication, but we can install that later. The immediate visual impact will be done within a week." "Let's do it." "Excellent. And for payment, we typically take 50% upfront, 50% on completion. I can send you a formal proposal and contract this afternoon, and if you approve, we'll get started tomorrow." I pulled out my phone, showed him the photo of the credit card statement. "Can you charge it directly? The 50% now?" He raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. He was in the business of designing beautiful spaces, not interrogating his clients' financial arrangements. He copied down the card information, had me verify the security code twice, and sent the authorization through his tablet. A moment later, his screen blinked green. "We're all set. I'll send that proposal to your email within the hour." After he left, I sat in Maya's living room on her plastic-wrapped couch and looked around at the space that was about to be completely transformed. The afternoon light came through the windows at an angle, illuminating dust motes in the air. The house was so quiet I could hear the ice maker in the fancy refrigerator drop cubes into its bin. Somewhere in this house, in boxes that hadn't been unpacked in a year, were Maya's yearbooks and photo albums, the tangible record of her childhood, gathering dust while she spent thousands on things that looked good in photos. I thought about my mother, about the way she touched the cameo before walking into church every Sunday, not checking that it was there, but connecting with it, drawing strength from it, reminding herself that she was part of something larger than just herself, that she carried her mother and grandmother forward with her. I thought about teaching Maya that same lesson, about believing she understood. My phone buzzed. Email from Carlos with the proposal attached. I skimmed it. Professional, detailed, exactly what we discussed. I replied, "Approved. Please proceed." Over the next week, I stopped by daily to oversee the work. The transformation was remarkable. On day one, a crew arrived and hauled away the sectional, still wrapped in its plastic. Two men carried it out like a corpse while I watched from the doorway. That afternoon, contractors arrived and started painting, the gray-blue going up in smooth, even strokes, transforming the boring beige into something with depth and sophistication. Day two, the teak sofa arrived, sleek and low profile, its cognac leather already looking lived in and loved. Carlos arranged it perfectly, angled to face the fireplace but open to the rest of the room. An electrician started installing the new sconces in the living room, brushed brass that caught the afternoon light. Day three, the paintings arrived, carefully wrapped and crated. Carlos unveiled them one at a time, the abstract landscape we'd chosen and another I hadn't seen yet, a mixed media piece with gold leaf that seemed to glow. He hung them with a level and a measuring tape, stepping back repeatedly to check the spacing. Art should be at eye level, he explained, but whose eye level changes the feel of the room? Day four, the chandelier went up in the dining room. It took two men 3 hours to install it, and when they finally turned it on, the geometric brass pieces caught light from every angle, scattering it across the walls like captured sunshine. I stood underneath it and felt something in my chest loosen slightly. Day five, the finishing touches. Area rugs, thick and plush in muted colors. Throw pillows and fabrics that felt expensive. Linen curtains that let in light but softened it. Ceramic vases in shapes that looked sculptural. Coffee table books about art and architecture arranged just so. A fiddle leaf fig tree in a terracotta pot. Every detail considered, every choice intentional. Mrs. Chen called that afternoon. "Maya stopped by your house this morning. Seemed really upset. Asked if you'd been by her place." "What did you tell her?" "That I hadn't seen you leave in a few days." "Which is true. I haven't seen your car move." She looked worried. "Asked me to call her if I saw you." "Thanks for letting me know." "Ellen, is everything okay?" "You don't sound like yourself." "I'm fine. Just dealing with some things." Maya seemed, I don't know, panicked might be too strong a word, but definitely worried. After we hung up, I sat with that information. Panicked. Worried. Had she tried to use her credit card and had it declined? Had she seen the charges and not recognized them? Or was she worried about something else entirely? Worried that I'd found out, worried about consequences, worried that the mother she'd always counted on to absorb her cruelties might finally push back? I hadn't spoken to Maya since that first phone call. Every time her name appeared on my screen, I let it go to voicemail. She'd left 12 messages over the course of the week. The first few were angry. "What the hell, Mom? Call me back." Then confused, "I don't understand why you're not answering. Did I do something?" Then something closer to panic. "Mom, seriously, I'm getting worried. Just let me know you're okay." The latest one from this morning. "Please, I'm sorry about the cameo. I'll fix it. Just talk to me." I deleted them without listening all the way through. Let her sit with the uncertainty for a while. Let her wonder what I was thinking, what I was planning, whether the mother she thought she knew was still the same person who would absorb anything, forgive anything, sacrifice anything. The renovation finished on day 7, right on schedule. Carlos walked me through the completed transformation one last time, and I had to admit, it was beautiful. Everything coordinated without looking staged, comfortable without being casual, sophisticated without being cold, the kind of space that interior design magazines would photograph with captions like effortless elegance and understated luxury. "The built-in shelving will be ready in about 3 weeks, Carlos said, reviewing his checklist. "We'll schedule installation then, but everything else is complete. What do you think?" "It's perfect." "I'm really pleased with how it turned out. The light in this house is exceptional. Everything just glows. You're going to love living here." I didn't correct him. He handed me an envelope with the final invoice and a USB drive. "Photos for your records, and I included my card. Please refer me to your friends. Word of mouth is how I build my business." After he left, I opened the envelope. Final invoice, 11,147 Southern. Remarkably close to his original estimate, probably because he'd wanted to make a good impression for future referrals. I looked at the itemized list: furniture, art, labor, materials, styling, $1,200 for the chandelier alone, $800 for the teak sofa's delivery and placement, $450 for custom window treatments. I walked through the house one last time, alone now, listening to my footsteps echo differently in the transformed space. In the living room, afternoon light streamed through the new curtains, soft and golden. The paintings looked like they'd always belonged there. The chandelier in the dining room caught the light and threw rainbow fragments across the walls, tiny prisms dancing on the fresh paint. The cameo's ghost sat somewhere in my chest, heavier than ivory and gold, lighter than it had been a week ago. I stood under the chandelier and closed my eyes, let the light play across my eyelids. Somewhere in this city, my mother's cameo sat in a stranger's jewelry box, its history erased, its meaning reduced to whatever cash value it had brought. Somewhere, Maya was probably looking at her credit card statement, trying to make sense of charges she didn't recognize, maybe starting to put pieces together, maybe still oblivious. I took out my personal stationery from my purse, the simple cream cardstock with my initials embossed at the top, the kind my mother had taught me every woman should have for thank you notes and condolences, and wrote in my neatest handwriting, for emergencies. Mom. I placed the note on the kitchen counter, set the spare key on top of it, and stood there looking at this small tableau I'd created. The key glinted in the overhead light. My handwriting looked steady, controlled. The note said everything and nothing at all. I took one last look at the house Maya didn't know she owned anymore. The chandelier caught the light again, throwing brightness across the walls like captured starlight. Through the window, I could see a neighbor walking their dog, the ordinary world continuing in its ordinary way, oblivious to the small revolution that had just taken place inside these walls. I closed the door behind me with a soft click that sounded almost like forgiveness. Almost. Maya called 2 days later, voice shaking with fury. I was watering my African violets by the kitchen window when my phone rang, her name lighting up the screen. I let it ring twice more before answering, taking my time setting down the watering can. What did you do? I switched the phone to my other ear, turned to look out at Mrs. Chen's roses. I redecorated. You said it was an emergency. Her voice cracked. You had no right. That's my house. My credit card. My life. And the cameo? I kept my voice level, almost conversational. That was your jewelry? Silence on the line, thick and damning. Then Maya, quieter but no less angry. That's completely different. Is it? I needed emergency cash too. For beauty, for comfort, for things that made me feel better. I moved to the sink, rinsed the watering can slowly. You understand emergencies, don't you? You stole from me. Borrowed, I corrected. Just like you borrowed something irreplaceable and sold it to strangers. Though I suppose there's a difference, you can get your credit limit back. I can't get my mother's cameo back from whoever bought it at that pawn shop. Maya's breathing turned ragged on the other end. I'm calling the police. Do it. I set the watering can in the dish rack, watched water drip from its spout. Explain to them why your mother had your credit card information. Explain how you got into my house when I wasn't home. Explain the pawn shop. I paused. I'll wait. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then I heard her breathing, harsh and uneven. The line went dead. I stood at my sink for a long time after, looking at my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me seemed unfamiliar. Shoulders straighter than they'd been in years, jaw set in a way I'd forgotten it could be. I'd spent so long being the mother who absorbed everything, who sacrificed everything, who forgave everything before it was even fully confessed. This other version felt strange, like wearing someone else's coat, but it fit better than I'd expected. Todd called an hour later. His voice was careful, measured, the tone of someone trying to negotiate a hostage situation. Ellen, can we talk? In person? About? I think you know. He sighed. Please, just coffee. Tomorrow morning? I agreed to meet him at Rosie's Diner, the place on Fifth with the vinyl booths and weak coffee and the smell of burnt toast that never quite went away. Neutral ground. I arrived first, chose a booth in the back, ordered coffee I didn't intend to drink. Todd showed up 10 minutes late, looking exhausted. His hair stuck up on one side like he'd been running his hands through it. He slid into the booth across from me, ordered coffee from the waitress without looking at the menu, then folded his hands on the table between us. Maya's been crying for 2 days straight. I said nothing, just wrapped my hands around my coffee mug. She told me what she did. The jewelry. I didn't know. He rubbed his face. God, Ellen, I swear I didn't know until 2 days ago when the credit card statement came and she lost it. She's been keeping so much from me. Like what? The spending, the debt. He looked down at his hands. We've been fighting about money for months. I thought we were on the same page. Save for a down payment, be smart, build equity. But every time I think we're making progress, there's something new. A bag, shoes, another dinner out we can't afford. And she just says she deserves it, she works hard. What's the point of making money if we can't enjoy it? The waitress brought Todd's coffee. He didn't touch it. I didn't know about the cameo until she saw the charges from the design firm. He continued. She was sitting at the kitchen table with the statement, crying, and it all came out. How she'd taken it. How she thought you wouldn't notice for a while. How she needed the money for... He stopped, looked up at me. A handbag. She pawned your mother's brooch for a handbag in spa day. Something about hearing it said out loud in Todd's flat, horrified tone made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I felt the words land in my chest, heavy and solid. She grew up watching you sacrifice everything. Todd said quietly, she told me that once, early, on when we were dating. Said her mom never bought anything for herself, always made do, always went without, so Maya could have what she needed. She said she swore she'd never be like that. I thought about those double shifts at the hospital, coming home too tired to shower, falling asleep in my scrubs because taking them off required energy I didn't have. Thought about the time Maya wanted to go on the 8th grade class trip to Washington, and I'd picked up weekend shifts for 2 months straight to afford it. Thought about her college graduation photo hanging in her hallway, both of us smiling, me proud that I'd managed to give her what she needed. So now she overcompensates, I said. She can't stop. Todd's voice cracked. I've tried talking to her, tried budgets, tried taking away the credit cards. She opened new ones. It's like she's trying to fill something that can't be filled. He looked up at me. Did you know she sees a therapist? I shook my head. Started 3 months ago. The therapist says it's about control, about growing up feeling like she never had enough, even when she had everything she needed. Now she can't stop proving to herself that she has enough, that she's enough by buying things. That doesn't excuse what she did. No. Todd reached across the table like he was going to take my hand, then thought better of it. God, no. What she did was, I can't even find words for it. When she told me, I left. Stayed at my brother's for a night. I couldn't look at her. But you went back. She's my wife. He said it simply, like it explained everything. Maybe it did. But Ellen, I need you to understand. She's drowning. We're drowning. The debt is crushing us. I've been picking up extra shifts. She works overtime, and it's never enough because she can't stop spending. And now this? He gestured vaguely, encompassing the renovation, the credit card bill, the whole mess. The design firm charged $11,000. We don't have $11,000. She has available credit. Had. Todd's laugh was bitter. The card's maxed now, and I looked at the statement this morning. She missed last month's payment. We're going to get hit with penalties, interest. Our credit score is going to tank. He dropped his head into his hands. I don't know what to do. I sipped my coffee. It was terrible, burned and weak at the same time, but it gave me something to do with my hands. Part of me felt a savage satisfaction at Todd's misery. They were drowning? Good. Let them feel what it was like to go under, to thrash and panic and reach for something solid that wasn't there. But another part of me, the part that was still a mother, still the woman who'd worked double shifts and gone without, felt the old familiar pull toward fixing things. I'll pay half, I heard myself say. $5,000 toward the credit card bill, but only if Maya agrees to financial counseling. Real counseling with someone who specializes in spending. Addiction? Todd looked up, eyes red-rimmed. You'd do that? Not for Maya, for you. You didn't sign up for this. I set down my coffee cup. But this is the only time. I'm not bailing her out again. She needs to learn that actions have consequences. Thank you. Todd's voice broke. Thank you. I'll make sure she goes to counseling. I'll drive her there myself if I have to. We sat in silence for a moment, the diner's ambient noise filling the space between us. Other conversations, the clatter of dishes, the hiss of the grill. Finally, Todd spoke again. Can I ask, why did you do it? The renovation? I thought about how to answer. The truth was complicated, layered with hurt and anger and something that felt uncomfortably close to cruelty. She needed to feel what it's like when someone takes your choices away. Todd nodded slowly. Is it? He hesitated. The house. It's really beautiful. Maya took me through it yesterday. I've never seen her cry like that. Because it's expensive? Because it's perfect. Todd looked at me, something like understanding in his eyes. Every single thing you chose is something she would have chosen herself if she knew how. It's like you knew her better than she knows herself. And I think that's what broke her, realizing you could create something so beautiful for her while simultaneously punishing her for what she did. I hadn't thought about it that way. Had just worked with Carlos, chosen things that felt right, pieces that would last, that carried quality and intention. Maybe some part of me had been furnishing the house for the daughter I'd raised, not the woman she'd become. She wants to see you, Todd said. When you're ready. I'll think about it. We left the diner separately. Todd headed to his truck, shoulders slumped under the weight of debt and disappointment. I sat in my car and watched him drive away, then checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Maya. No voicemails this time, just the calls themselves, unanswered questions hanging in the digital air. A week passed. I refinished an old bookshelf in my garage, my mother's preferred method of processing emotions. Sand, stain, seal, repeat. The physical work helped. The burn in my shoulders, the smell of wood and varnish, the visible transformation from worn to renewed. I thought about inheritance while I worked, not just objects but patterns, fears, the weight of worthiness. My mother had grown up during the Depression, never quite shook the mentality of scarcity, even when times got better. Saved everything, reused everything, made things last beyond their reasonable lifespan. I'd inherited that mentality, carried it forward, wore it like armor. And somehow, in trying to protect Maya from scarcity, I taught her nothing about value. She'd grown up with enough, so she never learned what enough meant. Maya appeared at my front door on a Saturday morning. No warning, no text, just her car pulling into my driveway, her face pale and drawn. She walked up my front steps. She was holding a small velvet box. I opened the door but didn't speak. We stood there looking at each other, my daughter and I, strangers who shared blood and history and a chasm of hurt between us. Can I come in? Her voice was small, uncertain. I stepped aside. She walked into my living room and stopped, taking in the worn floral sofa, the scratched coffee table, the framed watercolors I'd painted myself during the divorce, therapeutic attempts at beauty that weren't particularly good, but were mine. Her eyes moved over everything like she was seeing it for the first time. Sit down, I said. We sat on opposite ends of the sofa, the velvet box on the cushion, between us like a small bridge or a landmine. Maya picked it up, turned it over in her hands. I found this at an estate sale upstate, drove to 6 different sales over 4 days looking for something. Her voice caught. It's not Grandma's. But I thought... She opened the box. Inside, nestled in new velvet, was a cameo brooch. Similar era, similar carved profile, delicate gold setting. Not the same one, could never be the same one, but close enough to be either an insult or an offering. I couldn't tell which. I took the box from her, studied the cameo. The ivory was slightly yellowed with age, the carving less detailed than my mother's had been. The woman's profile faced right instead of left, but the craftsmanship was real, the weight of it substantial in my hand. Thank you. I set it gently on the coffee table between us. Maya started crying then, messy and graceless, tears running down her face unchecked. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought... She gulped air. I thought it was just a thing. Just an object. I didn't think about what it meant. About Grandma wearing it, about you planning to give it to me someday. I just saw something I wanted and I took it, and I'm so sorry, Mom. I handed her the tissue box from the side table. Let her cry. Didn't offer absolution, just presence. Todd told me what you offered, she said after a while, wiping her face. The money for counseling. I already made an appointment, next Tuesday. She twisted the tissue in her hands. He also told me I need to tell you why? Why you stole from me. She flinched at the word. I feel like I'm always trying to prove something. Like if I have nice things, if my house looks perfect, if I can afford expensive dinners, then I'm successful. Then I'm enough. She looked up at me, eyes red and swollen. Do you know what it was like growing up, watching you work yourself to death, never buying anything, always sacrificing? I was providing for you. I know you were, and I'm grateful, I am. But I'd see other kids' moms, They'd get their nails done, buy new clothes, take vacations, and you'd just work, always working. I remember being 13 and asking if we could go somewhere for spring break, and you said you'd picked up extra shifts instead, and I should be grateful we had a roof over our heads. I did remember that. Also remembered that the roof had needed emergency repairs that year, that the choice had been between a vacation and a house that didn't leak. I swore I'd never be like that, Maya continued, never deprive myself, never go without, and somewhere along the way it became this thing I can't control. I see something I want and I have to have it, and in the moment it feels like I'll die if I don't. And then I get it home and it doesn't fill anything. So I buy something else. And the cameo was just another thing you wanted. No. She shook her head violently. I needed cash. The credit cards were maxed. Todd was asking questions. I'd spent the grocery money on a handbag and I panicked. I remembered the cameo, remembered you saying it was valuable, and She closed her eyes. I just took it, like it was mine to take. We sat in silence. Through the window I could see Mrs. Chen deadheading her roses, the ordinary world continuing its ordinary rhythms. Can I see it? Maya asked quietly. The house? I was surprised by the question. You want to see what I did? I've been living in it for a week, but I want you to show me. I want to understand what you chose. We drove to her house together, the silence in the car heavy but not hostile. Inside, Maya walked through slowly, and I watched her see it with new eyes. She touched the teak sofa's leather, ran her hand along the brushed brass sconces, studied the paintings with her head tilted. In the dining room, she stopped under the chandelier and looked up. Light fractured through the geometric brass, scattering across the ceiling like captured stars. It's beautiful, she whispered. I hate that it's beautiful. Why? Because you chose better than I would have. She turned to me. The sectional was ugly. I knew it was ugly when I bought it, but it was expensive, and I thought expensive meant good. Everything here, she gestured around. It's actually good. Quality, intentional. It's what I should have chosen if I wasn't so busy trying to prove something. We moved through the rest of the rooms. In the living room, Maya stopped in front of the abstract landscape painting, the blues and greens that Carlos had said would complement the natural light. This one's my favorite, she said. Mine, too. She turned to me. What happens now, with the credit card? Todd told you what I offered. $5,000 toward the bill in exchange for counseling. That's incredibly generous considering she couldn't finish the sentence. Stole from me. You can say it, Maya. That's what happened. She nodded, tears starting again. Are you keeping all of this? The furniture? That's up to you. It's your house. I think I want to keep it. She looked around the transformed space. And sell some of the other stuff. The things I bought on impulse. The sectional if we can find whoever took it. Use that money to pay down the debt. She paused. I talked to my boss about overtime, and Todd and I are doing a budget, a real one this time. I'm going to fix this. Good. Will you... Maya's voice broke. Will you forgive me, eventually? I thought about my mother's cameo in a stranger's jewelry box somewhere. Thought about the new one sitting on my coffee table at home, a replacement that could never replace. Thought about the chandelier above us, throwing light across the walls, expensive and beautiful and bought with Maya's money without her permission, the same way she'd sold my history without mine. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me again in a year. Maya nodded, accepting this. We stood together in her transformed living room, the space between us still wide, but maybe, possibly, beginning to narrow. Before I left, she asked about the credit card bill. The full amount. I'll pay it off. Maya, that's not... It is. It's my debt, my mess. You were making a point, and I get it, but I need to clean this up myself. She straightened her shoulders. Todd and I will figure it out. Payment plan with the design firm, extra shifts, whatever it takes. I studied her face, looking for the girl who used to hold my mother's cameo up to the light, promising to remember. Found her there, underneath the debt and the desperation, underneath the woman who'd forgotten that some things carry more than money. The counseling, I said. That's non-negotiable. I know, I start Tuesday. I drove home as the sun set, windows down, radio off. The evening air was cool and carried the smell of someone's barbecue, cut grass, the particular scent of suburban summer. I thought about my mother's cameo in a stranger's jewelry box somewhere. its history erased, its meaning reduced to whatever cash it had brought. Thought about the new cameo waiting on my coffee table, about the difference between replacement and repair. At home, I opened my jewelry box, half empty now, gaps where Maya's thoughtlessness had stolen what couldn't be replaced. My grandmother's wedding band still sat in its depression, thin and worn. My father's cufflinks, tarnished but solid. The pearl earrings from my 20th birthday, their luster faded but their weight familiar. I retrieved the new cameo from the coffee table and stood holding it, feeling its weight, its history that wasn't my history, its beauty that belonged to someone else's story. The woman's profile faced right, looking toward something I couldn't see. The gold setting was slightly different, the clasp newer, stronger. I placed it in the jewelry box, not in the spot where my mother's used to sit. That space I left empty, a small memorial to what was lost, but in its own space on the opposite side. It didn't fit perfectly in the velvet depression meant for something else, sat slightly crooked, but it was there, present. A bookmark in a story that wasn't finished yet. I closed the lid gently, felt the weight of the box in my hands. Lighter than it used to be, emptier than it should be, but somehow more mine than it had been before. The cameo was gone, but I remained. Maya was broken, but she was trying to mend. The space between us was damaged, but not destroyed. Outside my window, Mrs. Chen's roses caught the last of the evening light, their red blooms almost luminous in the dusk. I set the jewelry box back on my dresser and stood there for a moment, looking at my reflection in the mirror above it. The woman looking back at me was tired, hurt, older than she felt ready to be. But her shoulders were straight, her jaw was set, her hands, empty of everything she'd lost, were finally learning how to carry only what was hers.